Merkel Media.
This was all circulating around the base that a giant had been killed, but no one was supposed to talk about it.
I saw 3 long, bony fingers reach up underneath the door, curl up to grab it, and then disappear.
When he came over to me, dude, he slithered over to me.
And this giant comes out of the cave and they're all frozen. And he starts running and firing at this giant. Well, the giant moves. He's got a spear in one hand and he's running really fast and spears Dan and holds him up like this. Somebody yells, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. They basically decapitate him.
Got closer. When he got about 15 yards away from me, I raised that 12 gauge and I blowed his head off.
I feel something pulling at my leg, and I look over and there are 2 small gray entities pulling at me. And they're literally, I'm getting pulled off the bed.
I reached my hand into this bush and I touched air. Couldn't breathe and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Hello everybody, you're listening to The Confessionals. I am your host, Tony Merkel. Thank you for being here. If you've had an encounter or a story you'd like to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. That's theconfessionalspodcast@gmail.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the connection section, and you can reach me that way as well. Either way works for me, just get a hold of me. Now, for the Art Bell iTunes 5-star ratings and reviews, if you don't know, if you're a new listener, we do 5-star ratings and review shout-outs from iTunes every week. All you gotta do is go ahead and do that, and you'll get a shout-out on the following week's show. And this week's shout-outs is Cola Nut 54, Lumberzack 88, Baby Hands, Can DJ Lex, you guys and your names, My Aching Nuts, Diva 17, Lilypad 1788, Instructor 29, Corn Mom 5, Joe Telfer, and Riley Who. Thank you very much for going to iTunes and leaving that 5-star rating and review. It means a lot to me. It helps the show out a lot on iTunes, and we all know iTunes is the biggest platform for podcasts. So, thank you very much. Now, moving on here, we got the Patreon shoutouts. This is for people who go to patreon.com/The Confessionals and sign up to become patrons. And this week's shoutouts is Joe D, Heather D, Steve D, Joshua F, Aaron, Penny P, Gwendolyn G, and Brian B. Thanks so much for going to patreon.com/The Confessionals and signing up to become patrons. I really hope you enjoy your experience, and I think it's awesome. So, let's get into this week's show. We have Andy coming on, and Andy's going to be talking Bigfoot to us this week. It's one of those situations where you're not exactly sure what's going on, but you think it's Bigfoot. You see some things, and you're just like, yeah, I just experienced that. So let's get into it right now with Andy. Let's go. Okay, tonight I have a good guest coming on. I have Andy. Andy, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, Tony.
Good, man. So you have a couple of Bigfoot encounters that you've had, and they're both in the same area. The first one happened, I think you told me last year. So why don't you just kind of walk us into what happened and share with us what you saw, man?
All right. Yeah, it was more like 2 years ago, the initial time.
Okay.
That something went on. And pretty much what went on is, I'm a big fly fisherman, do a lot of outdoor stuff. I'm real comfortable, kind of being as frugal as I can as far as the equipment I bring in the woods. I just enjoy that side of it, And most of the time what I'm doing is I'm finding creeks and, these spring rivers or streams, that they've got native brook trout in them that, we've only got them here in the East Tennessee. And, so any one of them I can find that's kind of off the beaten path, it's just better fishing. Now they're usually extremely isolated. So, you might be 3 miles off a main trail. And like I said earlier, I've got quite a bit of military training to help me out with some stuff and just got real comfortable with it. So just getting that kind of isolation just makes me feel better, and kind of clears my head and stuff. So, let's just say, I mean, if you drew a longitudinal line across Tennessee, I'm like right in the middle as far east as you can get, and probably 4 to 6 miles, somewhere like that, off of the main trail. And what was going on here, what I normally do, because you're supposed to always camp in a certified area whenever you're in the national park, you know. My intention was to cut across, you know, there's 3 ridges that had to go across, and then I'd hit this river, or else a stream, you know, it's maybe like 4 foot wide, and head straight up it and fish my way, you know. Once I got pretty much to the headwaters of this stream, I would cut across another mile, and that would get me to a backcountry campsite. So that was the intention. And what actually happened that evening was, you know, the fishing was really good. It was larger brook trout than what you normally get, especially at that elevation. And so I kind of got carried away in the moment, just enjoying myself, and got lost in nature. And, you know, kind of realized that after a while that, you know, it's getting darker a lot earlier than I thought it was, you know, kind of lost track of time. And, you know, ashamed to admit it, but I was like, all right, I got to make a campsite right here nearby, you know, because I'm never going to make it to a certified site. And so that's pretty much what I did. You know, I kept the next 3 or 4 fish that I caught. Once I got them out, I started setting up camp and, you know, making a fire right off the bat so I could cook everything up. And whenever I camp, I just use a hammock. And I've got a rain fly I keep on top of it. But if, you know, if everything looks pretty kosher as far as the sky goes, I don't even use it. And this was in late February, so it was pretty cold. Still had you know, get some pretty top-notch gear when it comes to that. So I wasn't going to use a canopy, just sit there by the firelight, you know, open air, really enjoy myself. So by the time it was dark, you know, I had the fish cooked. I'm good to go, and get in bed. So that's pretty much what I did. You know, there's no one to talk to. That's the way I like it. So I hopped in the hammock, you know, zipped up in my sleeping bag, and just started, you know, kind of relaxing. Now, whenever I'm there, the only thing I ever carry with me is a 45. I've got a lot of, I said, nostalgia for the old 1911s, and so that's what I carry. Even though they're heavy, I keep them with me. So I'm laying there, and I keep it in a pocket on the side of my hammock. And it's never really a concern. It's more one of those things where that if I didn't dispose of the fish real good, you know, in case a bear comes up or things get out of hand, at least I'm in control of the situation. So what happened this evening is after I'd had everything cooked up and was in bed, I'm laying there and I'm listening to stuff, you know, falling around me, and I'm thinking it's just acorns. You know, if you were camping in October or November, acorns are falling all the time. Don't think anything of it. And I didn't at the time. And, you know, somewhere in that point, I kind of realized, you know, well, it's end of February, and there's not any acorns falling. You know, what is that actually falling around me? And pretty much as soon as that thought had crossed my mind, one of them hit the side of my hammock and landed on my chest. And it wasn't an acorn, it was a rock. So the alpha male, you know, kind of came out, and I really flipped out, hopped out of my hammock quick as I could. Because I'm a pretty big guy, you know, I'm 6'5", 280 pounds. I mean, there's not much that I can't take in my mind, you know. And so I'm screaming,
right.
You know, who's out here? You know, who do you think you're messing with? Like, you know, this is bullshit. For lack of a better word, you know, I was enraged, you know, for someone to be out in the middle of nowhere messing with me. And of course, I'm yelling at myself. You know, no one answers. You know, I'm kind of feeling like a fool there for a second. And I even realized, like, man, you jumped out, you didn't grab your gun. You know, you don't know what the fool's out here. Especially in the middle of nowhere. It could be some meth head or moonshiner, you know, that's just paranoid. You never know what's going to happen. So I kind of calmed down. You know, I'm like, all right, no one's going to get the better of me. You know, I know how to do this. I can sneak up on anybody. I mean, I'm pretty proud of that ability, actually. So it was like, all right, this person thinks they're smart. I'm going to get them. So I get away from the fire. You know, I've got my gun. I'm relaxed. And, getting real stealthy. Got my back away from everything. I'm letting my eyes adjust. And, of course, there's no moon. It's a new moon, just as dark as it can be. All you can see is the stars. And maybe an hour and a half, somewhere in there went by. And I don't ever carry a watch or anything with me whenever I'm doing this stuff. I count the days. That's kind of what I do whenever I go back. And this was supposed to be a 5-day trip, and this was day 2.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there, for like an hour and a half, and nothing's gone on. It's completely silent. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm wigging myself out. Maybe it wasn't a rock. I didn't take the time to analyze it. Maybe it was a thick mushroom or something fell off a tree, or who knows what this is. I'm wigging myself out. No one answered. So I come back up to the fire. I'm kind of working myself back down, build my fire up a little bit more, because it was just embers at this time. You couldn't even cook on it. Pardon me. Build it back up. Fire gives most everyone a little bit of confidence, and that helped me. All right, I'm good. I'm going to get back to bed. This ain't any worries. So, thinking, I got this fire built up, I'm about to hop back in bed, and a rock, pretty much, that's, let's say, you got a 16-inch wheel with a 35-inch tire. Imagine that size. It's, full circumference. Comes rolling down like 2 foot from my fire and stops. Because where I'm camping at, I'm near the river, but it comes down at maybe a 75-degree angle, and then it flattens out. That's where I'm at, and it drops off at 75 again. And this rock comes rolling through and stops. So I know it didn't roll from very far, because it didn't gain the momentum to keep going off this little bench that I'm on. And it stops, right to the edge of the bench, but missed the fire by like 2 foot. And all right, that's a strange occurrence. Okay, maybe a rock broke loose. There's a ton of loose river rock around here. It is a flood area. So, stuff gets broke loose all the time. Not going to worry about it. Right then, another one comes rolling down with a lot more momentum, runs right through the fire. I'm losing my mind now. There's no way this is happening. No way it's lining up this way. I pull my pistol. I'm livid. Someone's definitely screwing with me. And fire off a couple in the air, complete silence. I do the same thing. I get behind the tree. Like, no one's going to screw with me like this. And I start trying to work my way around them, because I know they've got to be uphill at me now. There's no way. I never heard them run. There's no way. But there was no answer whenever I was yelling, especially after shots. But I don't know if you ever fired a gun in complete silence. Anyways, It's very deafening. You lose everything there for about 2 minutes. You're not going to hear any minute sounds. And so I'm just like, I got to wait this out. I've got to get my sense back about me, get my ears back about me before I can even start to stalk on this guy. And so I'm pulling around after, I waited my 2 to 3 minutes. I'm trying to wheel around on this person. And there's nothing. Most of the times whenever you pull a maneuver on someone, especially an individual, they're going to run. They're going to try to gain distance. And the trick there is usually you run 50, 60 yards and you can get an angle on them, especially when you've got some sort of light that's coming about, especially if it's a natural light or if there's a town somewhere nearby. You can angle on them and you can use that for reference. So that's what I did. I ran 50, 60 yards around, take me another 45 up the ridge, and, I said, I'm waiting. And nothing. Cutting this story kind of short as far as the way I went through the thought process of sneaking on someone, there was nothing. There was no noise, no sound, no movement, nada. I'm close to, by this time, 100 yards away from my fire. I can just barely see the faint light from it. No one's moving. There's not a deer. There's not a bear. There ain't nothing. So by that point, I know, okay, this isn't a human. There's no random person that's going to outbait me, or unless this is someone else that has quite a bit of military training, they're not going to outflank me. That's for sure, especially in the backwoods of Appalachian mountains. And either they did, or there's something else going on, because these rocks had to weigh close to 400 pounds apiece. So no one would, unless they're leveraging them out with something and moving something bulky, because, if you're using a log, you're going to hear a log snap and it working underneath a rock. There wasn't any of that. It was like this thing just got up and thrown and landed and rolled. That's pretty much the way it went.
Jeez.
So pretty much what I did at that point was I waited till, the first light, which, is mostly like a UV blue light that you can see. The woods opened up. I packed my crap and I got out, because if they're the way I viewed it was like, if they're better than me, this isn't anything I'm wanting to mess with. And initially, I wasn't thinking any kind of Bigfoot stuff. I'm thinking this is somebody. And, you give it a week or two really dwelling on what happened. And there's not many options. So they got me to looking into it a little bit more. And I talked to some military friends, asking them about that. So I checked with some of them about, happenings of the sort in the area, and there's a limited amount, maybe 3 or 4, and all those are keyed into disappearances. There's not really any other details about it. You've got a couple people that are, let's say, Bigfoot fanatics, that they just swear by it. Everything that makes a sound or a noise in the woods is Bigfoot, and our government pretty much wouldn't confirm or deny on either side of it. They're not going to say there is, they're not going to say there isn't. So that's kind of where I stood with it, was, well, I don't know what happened, but you take the facts of what happened, the way it happened, and let's say it's an outdoorsman who can outsmart me, which you don't know me. A lot of people don't know my background, but I do. Close friends know it. So there wasn't very many things I could blame it on. So yeah, I got pretty wicked out about it, because, in this world, things you don't know about, that brings fear in you, and I'm not a fan of fear. I think fear is, it's a feeling. It's not a fact. You have what's coming next, and that's all that matters. You deal with what can actually happen, and there was things that weren't, to my knowledge, things that could actually happen to me. So I kind of bailed on that area for the next year. Didn't really want to deal with it. Kind of ignored it. And I'm a God-fearing man. I'm strong in my faith. So, I bumped around a lot of things. Maybe this is something demonic trying to mess with me. Maybe this is, God allowing that. Maybe this is a test of some sort in my life. I was bouncing around on all kinds of things that just
Sure.
been. But the facts that I felt and that I saw, and that I heard, there wasn't much that could point to anything that would move, that way, that could pick something up that heavy and move it. So yeah, I leaned towards the whole Bigfoot thing. And so pretty much after that, like I said, I left a year hiatus on that area. I did a lot more of my fishing further north and further south, but that area, I just kind of left alone, until I'd say it was more like, last June, maybe, that I started going back into that area. More because the fishing's so good. It's like I'm relaxed. I'm used to what happened. It's kind of in the past. I'm dull to that feeling. But this time, I'm going to be a little bit more prepared. So, and when I say prepared, I mean I don't feel comfortable having 2 clips of 45, with 7 rounds apiece in whatever's going on. Especially after like last time I'd fired, 2 or 3 of them off, and left, and all I got 4 left. So,
right,
got to be sparing. So I was a little bit more prepared this time, and a lot more comfortable at. I was carrying more of a tactical pouch with me this time, let's say. So I was ready to go to war if it were to happen. So I go back into the area. It's June now, so not this June, but a year ago now. I went back into the area, and of course this time it's a lot greener. All the trees, there's a ton of red buds and a ton of light oaks in this area. So, it's a lot more dense. You can't see the ridgetop anymore, through the horizon whatsoever, just because of the leaves. And kind of what went on this time was pretty much went back to the exact same spot, more out of curiosity. I just couldn't help it. I've got to go back there because, like I said, I don't deal well with fear. I'm going to confront whatever the heck's going on. And so go right back to the same spot, make a point to camp in the same spot. And, that night, it was like any other night. Nothing went on. No I was definitely aware of what was going on, but like normally, I would sleep no problem. And for reference, I've had several black bears come up and bump me. I'm swinging in a hammock and they'll bump my butt. There's just smell.
Jeez.
That's all they're doing. And it's one of those things where if you've been around it enough, because I hunt bears. Now, this is in a national park, mind you, so I'm not hunting them there. But it's pretty much a respect thing. If you understand the reason they're there, they're not there because they smell a human. They're there because, I smell fish, or I smell bacon that they cooked,
Right.
the other morning or something of that sort. That's the only reason they're there. And if you let them be, for the most part, I've heard some horror stories. A guy, I think last year actually, got drug out of his a young boy, he's like 14, got drug out of his hammock by his foot. But if you know the locals, you also know this person, they've been cooking, in the same campsite for 2 days, all their trash, their bacon grease, everything was right there with them. And most likely that's on their feet. They're cooking on a fire. Of course, a bear's going to grab them like that. So it's a respect thing. You've got to be smart about it. And so I guess that's just to put it in perspective of, the way I am in the woods. And I wouldn't claim that unless I'd had other people with me, like, oh my God, that bear was like right next to you. And I don't know if you've ever been around the bear, Tony, but they're snorting and sniffing all the time. And for the most part, you hear them walking up to you, and you can either run them off or you can wait. And most of the time for me, it's always I woke up too late. It's like, oh well, if I wake up now, it's going to be an aggressive situation. It's better just to let them do their thing. And so that first night, that's pretty much the way it was. Nothing went on, nothing came by. I might have heard a raccoon or something come by, where I was on high alert. I listened to every step as it went by. But so I continue on. I'm going to do my 5 days, and I'm going to have a good time with this, and kind of put it behind me. And so second day, I'm up here, and went further upstream. I hit another stream that's basically it's crossing into North Carolina. You go to the national park, you go across one side, you're on the other side of the ridge. And, you actually have to cross the Appalachian Trail to get to this side of it. And, I was pulling kind of the same thing, doing my fishing upstream and, just having a blast, getting lost in nature. That's what I'm doing. And, I made it to a campsite that evening, had my fish with me, but there's some campsites that are used regularly, and you can tell, there's trees that are cut down, all the dead woods drug away. There's nothing nearby. You really got to work for it. And I try to avoid those areas just because I'm kind of antisocial, I suppose, would be the best way to put it. So I try to find some really oblivious spots that you're allowed to camp in. And that's what I did this time. And so I'm in my campsite and putting up for the night, got everything cleaned up. And these official campsites, they have places you can string your bag up. If you've got any food, you can run a cable up, and it takes 25, 30 foot up in the air, and that's really just to keep the bears off of it. So I had all that done. So I've all got on the ground there with me. I've got like an Algene bottle, I've got my pistol, and like a couple little snacks, because whenever I wake up in the morning, until the sun crests the ridge, I don't get up. I stay put most of the time. So I'm sitting there, and mind you, it's June, so things shouldn't be falling, but kind of the same thing went on where the stuff started landing around me. I'm hearing stuff that's dropping from the trees is the way it sounds. And, instantly I'm thinking, this is the same thing again. I'm less than a mile from that other area. It's the exact same way. Someone's throwing rocks at me. It can't be a person. There's no way they're here in the same area doing the same thing, a year later. And so I just go ahead and get out of my hammock, real calm. And, I put my fire out. And luckily this time, it's more of a crescent moon. I've got a little bit of light coming in. And so I sit down back against the tree right next to my hammock. It's a pretty flat spot here. You can see around you for about 40 yards on flat ground. And then as you go look up the ridge, pretty much that's where the tree limbs and the leaves and stuff start kind of thickening up the horizon. And whenever I'd gotten out, of course, what sounds like acorns dropping stops. And, I'm paying attention to every one of these actions, or lack of action, I suppose. And it's like, all right, this is definitely somebody. They just haven't hit me yet. That's what's going on here. And maybe 30, 45 minutes goes by, and calm, because I'm prepared for it this time. That's a better way of putting it. And they pick back up. And I'm starting to see the rocks falling. I can see them hitting around me, and I can see them rolling and bouncing on the ground. So I get a general direction of where they're coming from. So, of course, I'm watching, no different than whenever, if you're deer hunt, you hear the sounds, you vaguely staring in an area looking for movement. And I start picking it up. And it's kind of all right, I know if this is a person, I know where you're at. No matter what it is, I know where it's at. But let's say I'm trying to use my reasonable side and say, okay, this is a person that's messing with me, but something still doesn't allow that to be true. And the movement from it, I'm probably looking, this time it's probably more of a 45-degree angle up the ridge, and they're maybe 50 yards away. And I can see their arm, and it coincides with the rocks falling. So there's no doubt that this is someone throwing something. I'm thinking, what is the intention of this? What is this accomplishing? That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking through on this. And the last thing I ever want to do is kill someone. I don't want to do that by accident ever. I don't want, if it was some kid or, God knows what it could be, I don't want this to be just a rash decision. So I'm waiting it out. I'm watching them. And this probably goes on for 2 hours, and I'm guessing by this time it's, 12:30, 1 o'clock at night or in the morning by this point. And it's like, you've got to have something you're trying to do here. And I almost think, I guess let's put it, I'm believing that this is Bigfoot. This is whatever, Sasquatch or whatever you want to call it. There's got to be something they're trying to accomplish here. Because I've seen them move 2 or 3 times from tree to tree. I've seen just the outline, just barely. And when I say I don't mean like a full figure outline. I mean like the top of the head, pretty much. And I see an arm flicker, through the moonlight, pretty much. And it's like, what are you trying to do? And nothing happened really that night. I did hear them walk away finally. Maybe I'd say this was around 4 o'clock in the morning. They finally walked away. Everything stopped. And it's like, I'm thinking, well, that's pretty crazy. I know someone that they're throwing rocks. I can see them moving. Mind you, I don't carry a flashlight with me ever. That's just the way I am. I figure if I'm not prepared enough to have a fire and be ready to go, I shouldn't be there in the first place. I don't like to depend on electronics. Anything electronic, really. My wife now makes me, I got married recently, she makes me carry a GPS.
Yeah, that if she's making you
ping me, yes, she can ping me and I can ping her back to let her know I'm alive. That's what she needs, So I do that, and that's about the extent of it. And so anyways, it's 4 o'clock. I hear whatever this is kind of mosey off, and it's not like a fast pace. It wasn't a run, you hear a human walk through the woods, and you hear them. It's a deliberate step, kind of like a turkey walking off. To me, a turkey sounds almost identical to a human walking in the woods. And you didn't hear that. It was like slower than a deer would step. It's one step slowly, no heel involved, just the pad of the foot, and then wait 6-8 minutes. It was very at random. There was no cracks, no twig breaks, nothing like that. It was just like a perfect sneak away. It's the only way I can describe it. I couldn't have done it, knowing where they were. And I never saw them whenever they were moving away. I just noticed the lack of movement. And then there wasn't any stones falling, which I'm still thinking, how do you find this many stones? You've been throwing stones, like every 2 minutes for 4 hours. So like, how do you do this? Because, I would run out of them if I would fill my pockets full. I would be out of stones. But, after about 4 o'clock, nothing. Heard them sneak off, real slow. And that was it for that day. So, then nothing aggressive happened. There wasn't a bear or anything come around. So my thoughts were, well, I'm going to hit the next stream over, which is about another 3/4 of a mile. It's actually the same stream. It just branches off at the top. It's got the same spring feeding it. I'm going to go hit this other one. And that night, shortening it up, it was pretty much the exact same thing. Like, I had a full night of little stones being thrown, being able to see arm movement coinciding with the stones being thrown. I could see a little bit of the top of an outline on the ridge every once in a while. And pretty much the exact same distance. So to me, there's no doubt this is not a human. If there was a human doing this, they're going to have an intention. It's not going to be, they're not just going to throw stones just, because it's fun. They're not going to spend 6 hours doing that because they enjoy it. I mean, to me, you've got to be in your home. That'd be like having an ex-girlfriend from high school that you can't stand come and stay in the living room. You have them to leave. What are you going to do? I mean, are you going to be the most friendly person in the world? Is your wife going to be the most friendly person in the world? No, they're going to be like agitated. Like, please leave me. And that's the way I've viewed it ever since. So there was 2 nights, that I've had that, and I've kind of quit going to the area because it distracts me from enjoying myself, because I get so caught up in what's going on in that area. And there's 3 streams that feed into there, and one of the 3 branches into 2, actually. So I guess you could say 4. And that's pretty much what's going on there. But there's not anything I could say, yeah, I saw full outlines of a Bigfoot or anything like that. I'm not claiming that to any extent. It's just, I saw an outline. It's definitely human. They've got shoulders, they've got a head, they've got an arm that they're throwing stuff with. I know that's not, it's not Popcorn Sutton, over there with his moonshine trying to get me to run off, And I don't think for a second that it, the whole idea of maybe, this is God allowing something to happen to him, some demonic force in the woods. I don't think that for a second anymore. That was me grasping the straws, before. And after hearing it walk away both times, I fully believe that it was flesh and blood. There was something there. So it's, that's pretty much where I stand at with it. and I'm willing to go back again. It's just, I don't have much desire. Like I said, it pulls away. I used to get a lot more time to get out in the woods. Now I do it, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I'll take a week at a time, and I'll spend 4 or 5 days out there. So yeah, it just pulls away from my experience just being in the area. So I'm not afraid to go there anymore. I know that whatever it is, like I said, I think it's something, it doesn't want me to be there. You just need to get away. I'm going to keep you awake all night if you don't. That's the way I kind of view it now. And I've never experienced that anywhere else. I've spent the night in the Darien Gap in central Mexico, or Central America, I suppose. I've spent the night there. I've been in the jungle and had monkeys, that are messing with you all night. And they're the same way sometimes. If they don't want you to be there, they're going to let you know it. They're a lot more vocal about it too. Like, it's like, get the hell out of my land. I'm sick of you. And, other places, they don't want, let's say like in Africa, they're not going to let you know. If something's going to sneak up on you, they're not going to give you fair warning. They're just coming. And, you're taught that, just be ready. You might get blindsided in a heartbeat. Be ready for it, because you're not going to know it comes. So this is completely different from a lot of other animal aspects. So, like I said, I can relate it to the apes a little bit, and what are they? Lemurs. I've dealt a lot with lemurs, and they're just really loud and really annoying. They're going to keep you awake all night. So I can relate it to that. But I never heard any sounds, at least in the mountains here. It was just the rocks, and seeing something, a body form, and that's pretty much the extent of what else went on there. And I've been, let's say, from, I've done the AT 2 times, in full length, and I've never experienced anything like that while I was doing that, and that was more of a, I want to know how fast I can do this in. That's the way I did it then. I'm a little bit older now, so I'm not a fan of that anymore. So, But yeah, that's pretty much what's went on. That sums them both up. And I've considered going again. And my wife is a big fly fisher. Her fisher woman. She likes to go. But she's heard my stories. I'm pretty honest with her about stuff. So she's told me several times, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be around that. I don't need that nerve-wracking thing. And she knows exactly what I'm talking about. We've hiked through it before, but we never stayed the night. And that's always been things that went on. So
when you saw this thing throwing rocks at you, I know you said you didn't have a flashlight. So were you able to see like the size of the arm or if it had hair on it or anything?
No, I couldn't see the size of the arm. All I could see when that was going on was like the flash of movement. I could definitely see a shoulder and head. But as far as the size, because of the angle that I was at, once it was really steep, like 75 degrees, probably 70 degrees. And the other one at 45, and they're 50 yards up. You could be 6 foot tall and still seem like you're 9 foot tall. Do I think they were large? Yes. I mean, the head was definitely large. The arm, couldn't say much about the size of the arm. I just saw the flash, where someone was sewing something. And that was all I could keep up with.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, and you said that you heard multiple walking away, right? It wasn't just like one, it was multiple Bigfoot or whatever it was.
Yeah, there was more than one movement. I never could track more than one at a time as far as what I could see the movements. But like if you ever just sit, like, I don't know if you're a hunter or not, but if you're hunting, a lot of times you're not staring at this log, you're not staring at this tree, you're staring in a general direction and you kind of let your eyes close out to pick up the movement.
Right. And
so when you see that little flash, you can zoom in on that spot, like your eyes will focus in that area. And that's pretty much what I was doing. So at most, initially, I thought, this is one person or one being, let's say. But if you get 20 yards between here and there and you don't hear any movement between those spots, well, you got to assume there's at least two. I would say at least two, maybe three the first night that I had the issue. But the second night, probably two. Because I never heard movements between, there was maybe 20 yards between the two areas that things were being thrown from and the angles that I was getting the rocks dropping down. And whenever I'm saying these rocks, they're like the size of a dime, maybe. These are very small rocks, but definitely rocks. There's no doubt about it. After the first night, I made a point to look, this next time I was up there, there were definitely rocks being thrown. It was like river gravel, basically, all smooth stones. And so I would say at most two, but whenever everything was moving, it was, I knew the direction, but it was, if there was more than one moving, it was very calculated the way they moved. There was one step and then like another minute or two, maybe 3 minutes, and then the next step. They were in no rush wherever they were doing, or wherever they were going. They knew how to move in the woods. And if you were moving yourself, you wouldn't have ever heard it. I had to be completely stagnant, almost holding my breath to hear each step. So if I had to say that there was a number, two would be the minimum, three at most. So
do you think that they were, trying to get you to leave an area, or do you think they were just trying to bother you? It doesn't seem like they were trying to hurt you, because if they were trying to hurt you, you'd think they would take bigger rocks. Right.
Whenever I came back the second time, the first time, I think it was kind of a fear tactic. And looking back at it, okay, it started with rocks, like, I want to get your attention, you're bothering me. And then I think it was a convenience thing. Where I was at, there was a lot of large rocks anyways. So to me, it's the thing where, I can just roll this down that way, and that he's going to get the point. That's kind of the way I look at it now. The other time, I don't think aggressive whatsoever. I think it was an annoyance thing. I want you to leave, but I'm not going to expose myself in any way, just like if you were going to shoot at somebody, they're going to do their best to stay behind a tree the whole time. If they're not aggressive and you were to shoot, I'm not going to come out from behind a tree, unless I have a reason to. So I think that's pretty much, it was more of a, please get away. that's the way I take it now. Because I've had a lot of time to think about it, and it was just the best way I think that they could, signal to anything, if they wanted to leave. If you wanted to run a deer off without a deer seeing you up at the tree stand, I mean, throwing a rock's a good way to get them to run off. They're going to get kind of agitated, a little bit timid. Something's not right. I'm going to run off. So that's kind of the way I took it. It wasn't aggressive. It was, just get out of this area. I think they wanted me to be somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very common thing. I mean, it's just one of those things where a lot of people report very similar actions, and that's obviously one of them. You kind of hinted towards it in the beginning of the interview, but what do you think these things are, man? I mean, do you think that they're just literally just natural animals that we just haven't found yet, or do you think there might be a little bit something more to it, but not necessarily a paranormal aspect?
No, I don't think there's a paranormal aspect, personally. And with talking to some other people, that I'm not a fan of talking to, let's say, civilians about stuff like that, because people's mind like to run. I like to talk to people that have been trained the same way I have, that you deal with facts. This is what happened. This is what's going on. This is where it was. This is what's, where these people are, stuff like that. So I take it, I think that this is a flesh and blood thing, that, it's just a reclusive thing. I kind of believe in the whole nocturnal side of it, kind of like deer. You're going to have a lot more deer movement whenever it's completely dark. I think that, not that I've ever shined anything like this, but I imagine they probably have that photo layer behind their eyes, the mirror side of it. I'm sure that they would probably have a glare or eye shine if you shined them, just because how comfortable they were in the dark. And being able to find things like, I imagine this, if it is a Bigfoot, it doesn't have pockets. So they're finding these rocks, in the dirt and throwing them. So I think it's flesh and blood, just throw that out there.
Yeah.
As a solid answer. Yeah. I think it's a natural thing here. I think there's a limited number. And let's see how to put it. I would put them on an they're definitely intelligent, whatever it is. But I can't say much more other than it probably is more of some kind of relation to an ape of some sort. And that's talking to some other people kind of like me, that have had similar experiences. Most of those are in Virginia, actually, the people I know. But they view it the same way. There's never been anything aggressive for them. It's always been like an annoyance, and never in the daytime, ever. So to me, it's just it's no different than those lemurs. They're loud, and though I don't believe they're smart. A lemur at least. So whatever this is, it's large, bigger brain. They're going to be able to think things through. I've done a little bit more looking into it, since then, kind of admitting to myself, what actually happened. So they're probably, vocal, at least. You hear about them being vocal all the time. There's all kinds of recordings on the internet if you want to, whether they're real or not. But if they are, I'd say, for every 5 that's real or 5 that's fake, there's maybe 1 that's real. I've heard some stuff that if it is, it's not anything else I've heard in the woods. I've heard coyotes going nuts. So some of the stuff I've heard on the internet, it's like, that definitely ain't a coyote. That's not a raccoon fighting with anything. That's definitely not a bear. I've heard elk bugling. That's definitely not an elk. I've heard monkey screeching. It's close to that.
Right.
I've heard a orangutan just absolutely bellow, from the gut, and there's some similar sounds there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where I have these mixed opinions on it, where I definitely think they're physical creatures and I think they can be killed. But at the same time, I'm I hear other people's stories. I'm like, well, seems like they have other abilities too that I don't quite understand. It's just, it can be confusing at times, but I definitely believe that they are physical creatures. I do believe that they can be killed. But I do think that there are more to these things than we can understand at this point, at least. I think there's something about these things that it's different. It's just different. And so,
yeah, well, like I follow Les Stroud, Survivor Man. I'm a big fan. I love the way he does stuff. I've actually had a few conversations with him. Not that he would know me. Don't think I'm claiming that for a second. But we've had some online conversations about some stuff, more not at all to do with this, but that I know he's a real man. He's a real person. He lives what he does. I mean, I think very highly of him. And, some of the stuff he's had going on in his personal accounts, maybe there is a little bit more to it, but I don't have I don't have anyone that I know on a first-hand basis or first-name basis, at least, that can make that claim,
Right.
Because from what I understand, he's a pretty big believer now, and a proponent of the whole Bigfoot movement, if you want to call it that.
Big time.
So, from what I see from that man, he's straightforward on everything. I don't think he's going to BS anybody. And that's one of the things that, that kind of made me admit to myself was, watching some of the stuff this man's dealt with and what he has to say about it. And I like to think I've spent a lot of time with it, but I imagine he's probably spent a little bit more. He's a little bit more hardcore than I am.
Right.
So, in watching some of his things, there's been stuff that involves lights. I think there's one that he was doing in Alaska that involved that, had some lights going on. Didn't have any other encounters, but he thinks they may go hand in hand, but he's not going to make any kind of claim, So I think I stand on the same side. It's flesh and blood. It's intelligent enough. They have their own realm per se. I know the woods pretty good, but they probably know it better than me. If I spent 24/7, I'm going to have my places to hide out. I'm going to have my ways to get somewhere, and you're never going to know. Someone tried, before we actually started the interview, I was down in a holler, where we had terrible phone reception, and someone came down there on me, I'm going to know it. The moment they step foot inside my ridge, I'm going to know. It's just I know my land. And maybe I'm a little paranoid, so I've isolated myself that way. But I know my property, and I imagine they probably know theirs. I can't imagine how they wouldn't. So, but again, that's kind of why I go back to it's a flesh and blood thing. I don't think there's nothing has proven to me that there's anything paranormal going on surrounding it. It's just, they are what they are. Like you said, I believe, if one walked out 30 yards from me, I'm going to probably put two in the chest and one in the head. They're going to be done for, given the opportunity, because, there's so much around this, especially, with the internet age here, and everyone's able to communicate everywhere and talk about everything. Hey, I don't care about being famous, but this is such a big thing. I would want to prove it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, and that's the only way it's ever going to happen. There's going to have to be flesh and blood, and it's going to have to be laid out in front of somebody. And it's not going to be able to be something like you take it to the big game checking station, and the game warden's like, "Oh crap," because who knows? They might know something about it and sworn to privacy about it, or they might have someone else they call, and then it's a hush hush thing. I imagine this has already happened.
I think so.
There's one already been killed, and it's like, oh my God, we can't let this get out. People are going to quit going into the mountains. Like Smoky Mountain National Park is their attendance is going to either skyrocket or it's going to plummet because no one wants to be near this. And so that's kind of the way I think it is. Teddy Roosevelt, he's wrote about this stuff. That was something else. That's one of those men that I hold in high regards, and I've read a lot of his memoirs, and he's talked about encounters with these wild men. And I think Teddy's kind of the man, as far as presidents go. Yeah. And so it's, how can you take a memoir that this man that was so well known, that did so much, especially for wildlife conservation, and just dismiss everything he wrote about? Why would a man like that lie about something? And if anything, he's wanting to protect it. that's just there's so many things that lead up to it. There's so much factual evidence, from reputable people that are coming forward over the ages. How can it not be real? And this, like I said, it's just been over time, for me, at least reading all this stuff and slowly gaining interest in it, that I finally come to that conclusion. And talking to other people, like I have some friends that are well up in the military, and you ask them certain things like, hey, is this real or is this not? And sometimes you'll get yeah, it's real. And then other times you'll get I can't really say, and, it could be something way off the wall and they still might answer like that. They're good. They're good at lying. And even like one of them, I grew up with the boy, he's the same age as me, but he's still enlisted, and, he does some big stuff, and he, I'm not like I'm saying, there's some things that have been confirmed that blow my mind. So if those things are real, why not this? He doesn't do a lot of ground stuff. So I don't think he's able to get clearance for everything, but the ones that pertain to him, he definitely does. And he's confirmed them for me. Now, you might have to get a few drinks in him before he will, but he'll let him slip to people that he's known since he was 9, So yeah, that's where I stand on that.
Well, Andy,
this is too much.
I totally get it, man. I mean, everybody has, their own opinions as to what these things are, but, right. I definitely agree with a lot with what you said and stuff. And I do definitely think that the only way this thing is ever going to be proven is if you take one down and you bring the body in. I don't think that you can bring the body in just to one location. I think you're going to have to chop that body up and take it to several locations very quickly, all at the same time, preferably, to help keep from it getting in the wrong hands. I think it's going to have to be done very quickly, very tactfully, and I just don't know how many people that actually have the opportunity to take one down would know to execute on that kind of level. Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Because honestly, if I was in that moment, I wouldn't think about that. Right. I'd be like, oh my gosh, look at what people are going to be amazed. I wouldn't be thinking about, I got to prove it to everybody. I've got to cut this thing into 5 pieces, let alone trying to drag the thing out. From what I hear, you're not even supposedly these infants are weighing, they're being born at like 30 pounds probably. Yeah. And then after that, well over 150, dead weight, that's not easy to get around. And where I've been at, I sure wouldn't want to be dragging out no 150, 200 pound deer, let alone whatever this thing might weigh. So, because from what you hear, they assume anywhere from 500 to 800 pounds. I can't imagine. Now, one thing I will add, I never did look at where in this area, now that I think about it, I never looked at where, let's say, that Bigfoot was standing. I never went up there and investigated that. More from lack of, I didn't need to in the moment. Let alone I didn't have anything that I could take a picture with or anything like that. But I knew something was there. I knew something was stowing. I knew it was upright. So there wasn't any much more reason for me to go up there. So I will add that in there, but I didn't investigate the ground or anything of that sort because I wasn't really concerned with it. So that might take away from the credibility, but in no way am I a Bigfoot hunter or anything like that. I just enjoy being outside and the serenity itself. So I get it, man. That's cool. Yeah. No, it's fine. I'll tell you what, Andy, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this story and stuff and talking a little bit. It's been interesting because a lot of times you hear people say that they see these things, but you saw the arm actually throwing the pebbles or the stones or whatever it was. But it seems to me like it didn't really want to hurt you and stuff, so that's good. But go ahead. Oh, I was saying no. I don't feel that way at all. I think it was an annoyance. I was on their nerves. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, Andy, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Hey, glad to do it. All right, brother. Take care. Hey, thanks for watching the Confessionals on YouTube. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, and hit the like button. That would be a great help to me. And if you want more of the Confessionals on a weekly basis, every Thursday I come out with a special show just for members on my website. So if you want to check that out, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com, hit the join button, and become a member today. And every Thursday, you'll get a new show, and you can binge on previous shows, which there's almost 100 of them. So if you love the show, go ahead and check it out. But thank you very much for being here on YouTube and checking out the channel.